Alright everybody, hello and welcome back to another episode of Kerbal Space Program with me, Spacefish, and welcome back here to sunny Kerbal Space Center on beautiful Kerbin. Now, if you'll remember in the last episode, after coming back from lunar orbit, we finally took care of some research, got ourselves some new fancy technology to hopefully take on the travel to the moon yet again very soon and actually finally get a landing done on it. But with that said, in the meantime, we also had an update drop, which was a very interesting one. Very much looking forward to actually checking that out a little further into this series. It was update 1.11, I think, and it basically adds actual welders for engineer Kerbal so that, well, you can basically alter vehicles while in space. Very interesting concept. I've got no clue how it works in terms of actually getting the parts there and then ultimately changing things, maybe repairing things. I've got no clue at all, but it sounds like a very interesting concept to me. That's probably also then eventually going to carry over to Kerbal Space Program too, I'd guess. So very much looking forward to eventually checking that out with you all. But with that said, let's get ourselves into the VAB, because in the last episode, I'm pretty sure we had kind of looked at starting to build a new rocket, but we did find out that we would need to go from the very start, I think. We had the Moon of Magic right here. I think that was basically our orbiter that we used to get over to the moon in the last episode. But I do need to make a totally new spacecraft now, as the Mark 1 command port really only houses one Kerbal. And when I finally want to go to the moon, I do want to have a scientist so I can like reset some experiments. Maybe he helps me in terms of actually being able to like grab surface samples and stuff like that. So I want to go with 2 Kerbals, and that does mean that we will need either a Mark 2 command port or, well, we had the option to get another one, but I don't think we had the research points left for that. So this is kind of the option we will have to end up going with, the Mark II command pod. Pretty new addition overall, I think, to Kerbal Space Program. I have not used this one myself yet. I think in the initial version of the game there was only this Mark 1 and then the Mark 3, which is like 3-seater. So very interesting. Looks a bit is it like Apollo-esque, Mercury-esque? I'm not quite sure, but it does look like a rocket from the American Space Program. Haven't really had much of a look into the history of spaceflight as of late, so I'm sorry if I don't quite know. But with that said, we are going to try and actually start building this thing from scratch, and we'll getting it to a point where we can hopefully safely land on the moon and then somehow get it also back home afterwards. So for a start, what we will need should be in, is it utility? No, I don't think so. No, there it is. Mark 16 parachute, just a standard one. I think should be fine. The XL is usually something that you use the Mark 3 command pod. I think we've got a flag, which is also always very cool. I did actually just now remembering, I did not actually import a mission flag yet that I should still have somewhere in my backup files. I do need to remember to do that. I am kind of slightly concerned, honestly. I mean, this parachute is looking a bit small, so I hope that it can cope with the weight of the mission module in the end. Let's see about that. We also have this escape thingy, of course. That is a bit big for this pod anyway, so I don't think we're going to use it this time around. Don't really plan to explode on start anyway, so let's try and avoid that. Does this thing have a heat shield? Oh, this is actually cool. Didn't know I could see the astronauts I've assigned to it. And they do have an inventory. Oh, what's that? What is this? Oh, that's a jetpack. Okay, I thought it was like some research thingy or something. Okay. So we do see some information right there, and doesn't seem as though we have a heat shield. So that's definitely an important piece of information right there. However, I'm actually just noticing that we need some bits and bobs for science first. So I'm going to, as with the old rocket, put an experiment storage unit up top here and then put the parachute on top. So that way we can store our experiments away nicely right there. And then I'll have to kind of find out where to put this thing, because this, of course, is, you know, probably a bit weird. I don't know if I've got some sort of fairing or something that I could put around it. I mean, the coupler won't put one around. Maybe I can use like a service module to put it inside of, but I don't think so. No, service module is really more for the smaller things. I think I already tried that one out the last time. This is a small service bay, so a different service module too. Got a protective shell right there, which I mean in theory maybe we can use that to make it look somewhat normal, I guess. I mean, this is still a bit weird, is it? Yeah, I don't know about this one. That's a very good question of how I want to do that, because I don't seem to be having anything that I can just like put this thing inside of. Now what I can do is something, well, do we have a structural tube? Can I put something inside of that? Let's find out together. Doesn't really quite... Oh no, that works. Okay. Now the question is, how do I get rid of this structural tube? Oh, whoa. We've got different lengths too, which is kind of nice. I only kind of have the issue that there's no door on this darn thing. Which, you know, would probably be a useful thing to have, given that we do probably eventually want to access this. Wait, No, go wait. Oh. Well, let's just delete the whole thing. I kind of just had an idea. Totally forgot that there's different variants of things. Maybe there's a different variant of this thing too? Of course not. Yeah. And there's like, do I have no chance of actually putting that in there? No. Okay. I mean, we do also have some like random things like these, but this is only photovoltaic panels, so that only powers experiments, I guess. I don't seem to have any more stuff. I'm just kind of struggling right now to find how I want to attach this thing, because this pod is like so large in relation, and there's like no different size variant of this thing, but I don't also really have anything I can put this into that would have a door to be able to access it after the fact. I mean, we do have the structural tube, which, you know, is great and everything, but like I can't access the actual experiment if I put stuff in there. Like I could probably, whoops, let's try that again. How did I do it the first time actually? Oh, there we go. Okay. I mean, we could like leave it open like that, I guess. Still a bit weird, but you know, I don't know. This is just weird, is it? That just doesn't do it for me, to be honest. And we can't really put it up there. Maybe we can put it into like the side pots of the engines of the lander. Because I mean, the science is going to end up in there anyways, right? I think that's going to be the way that we do it. Okay, so let's start this out with, do we have an RCS tank that I can put here? Doesn't quite look like it, does it? The only sort of RCS tank that I have so far seems to be this thing. Which maybe we can put that into the service module bay then. Let me just try that out. It's a bit big, is it? We've got the small, no. Okay, we're going to put that outside the rocket. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to fuel tanks. We're going to try and grab some fuel tanks that actually fit the size of this rocket if we do have some. There we go, that works for example. Well, I mean, I think we can work with that, yeah. Now, I do also have that thing. I guess we can color match it eventually, so that would be my hope here. Let's just compare masses. Okay, that's actually kind of inferior in terms of mass. Because like 2 of these weigh as much as 1 of these. They do have the same amount of liquid fuel and oxidon for the mass though, which is weird given, no, I guess it's about the same size too. So it doesn't really change much of anything for me there. I do, however, sort of wonder how big or small I want to make this lander portion. Also, where's the door on this thing? Is it here? Because in that case, I probably want to turn this. So like I can put an actual ladder right there If I even have one, hopefully. If not, the Kerbals are going to have to fly their way up there. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, rotate that too. Just make it about this tall and put that there, and that's going to be like my lander stage, but I'm of course going to have some outside engines as well to kind of up the power that I have available on landing and on startup from and to the moon. Now what we will of course need is going to be SAS. SAS is a good thing I've heard of. That's actually an issue too. Bah. I mean, this thing is at least big enough, but I think I'm missing abilities here, am I? Maybe not. Just need a few more of them. We're just gonna put 3, so we've got 1 ASAS, basically. Maybe we can add a few ASASs on the outside stages. But we will need engines, of course. Now, I'm not sure I've kind of got an engine like the proper size of this rocket, to be honest. I do have this one. It seems to be the only one that I have that's fitting, because these are definitely the smaller ones. This is definitely a smaller one as well. I mean, I could put it on there. I'm pretty sure it's going to be very little in terms of thrust. I mean, vacuum thrust 60 kilonewtons. I think that's just too weak to actually land on the moon. Now we've got this thing, which is 400, which is pretty good. ISP is at 310 in vacuum, which is actually also not too bad. So maybe we're just going to use this thing then. Just going to have to think how we can actually land this thing now. Because, well, I mean, we do have these bigger landing struts, right? But still. I'm also kind of wondering to what degree I'm overbuilding this thing right now. You know, if I was using a Mark 1 command pod, I would be pretty confident that I would make it shorter. Like just up till here, and then have like 4 engine pods around the outside and be happy with it. But with this thing, I'm really not too sure, because this thing is pretty heavy, right? With the big pods and then the bigger fuel tanks around it. I feel I can't make it too small. So that's kind of what I'm going with for the time being. So what we will of course need is going to be some coupling stuff. Now we've got 2 radial decouplers here. Not quite sure which one used to be the better one. I feel it was the TT70. Has a slightly higher ejection force. It also has double the mass, which is of course a bit of an issue, but it adds some more standoff distance, right? If you do this. I don't know. What's the price difference? Just $100. I think I want to use this one. I feel it's a bit more trusty, because, you know, you have a bit more distance sort of from the main rocket, so I'm like a bit more positive that stuff won't instantly go boom into the main rocket and everything explodes and the mission has failed. So that's kind of my idea right there. Now we're going to pick up a few smaller fuel tanks, of course, for the outside stuff. Don't need to do anything huge right there. I'm going to put that right there, and I'm not quite sure. Definitely need to make this longer than these main engines in the middle. So I'm going to add on like a nice small fuel tank here. Probably also want to color match this stuff, no? Can I? Oh, I like this grey and orange. Why does this not color match itself though? This is not grey and orange, by the way. This is grey and white. I do kind of like the style, to be honest. Looks a bit like a Soyuz, doesn't it? Or, well, like parts of the Soyuz. I think I like this one the most, though. Like, we're gonna do the Soyuz style rockets a bit later, maybe now. It's not quite great for alignment and everything, but that way it kind of blends in with the rest of the rocket. I think this is fine. We're gonna, of course, have to put some engines around the outside here. Before I do that, though, I'm gonna put some gears, aka landing struts, right here. And that is going to be far enough to not bump the engines into the ground, I think, I hope. So fingers crossed that's going to work out for us. Now what we will, of course, need right here is going to be some engines. And that'll be a desirable thing. I'm going to put the Terriers around the outside here, I think, if I do have fuel ducts, and I do. So that's awesome, because that way we can connect these tanks to the inside, and I'm just going to pre-startup kind of move all the fuel from the outside to the inside, so we can kind of get rid of that extra tank mass ASAP basically once we're in flight. That's going to be the idea right there. We're going to need some nose cones for aerodynamics, so we're going to pick these basic ones up here, and that should be good for a start. Now what we're also going to add on is I'm going to add on some winglets for added controllability during ascent, and we are also going to grab some struts from right here, which we'll of course use to kind of try and prevent the rocket from wiggling itself apart, which, you know, in Kerbal Space Program is always a thing that likes to happen, so I'm going to make very sure that won't happen. I think I'm going to keep this at the 3 basic SASs, to be honest. Just going to keep the ASS out, because if I'm going to put it on one of these nose cones, I'm going to have to put it on all 4 just to kind of distribute mass equally, and at that point, you know, that's probably a bit of an overkill. So we're going to try and keep it at this. I am going to add on some more landing struts, because I'm not quite confident that this amount of landing struts will be sufficient. Just got to kind of make sure to set these up at the proper height, so all the landing struts are kind of at the same operation heights. So this should be about fine. I'm going to put another set right here. Yep. That is looking pretty decently. Okay, so that is going to be our lunar lander for a start. I hope you like the optics overall. I did just notice that I did do a bit of a whoopsie, because I do not have the flippin' research thingy on there, which is an issue. I'm still not sure where to put that, because as I mentioned previously with the ASAS, I would offset the mass putting it on one of these and not on all of the others, which I really don't want to offset the center of mass. That's kind of a bit of a dangerous thing to do. Where I would put it though, I have got absolutely no idea. Literally none. So that's an issue. I mean, I'm gonna look here, by the way, for thrust levels and everything. We do... I think we're gonna use a skipper for a start, probably. At least on the main stage. Does this have thrust vectoring? Where did I see that again? I have the swivel gimbal vectoring range. Right, so it should be somewhere here. Yeah. Okay, vectoring range of 2 degrees only. Okay, this other one has 3, so that's pretty fine. So I'm kind of sure about most of everything. Right, the lander stage, the ascent stage. I'm pretty sure how I want to design most of this craft. I even know where to put most of the scientific instruments, where to put like batteries and the likes. Actually, speaking of batteries, do I have... No, I don't have a flat battery to match this stuff. So we're just going to put on basically some of these things, you know. I'm pretty sure of how I want to do all these things, where I want to put most of these things. The one thing I'm totally, absolutely unsure about is how in the world I do want to take care of actually placing the Science Junior. I've got no clue where to put that thing. So we'll have to find out about that. For the moment, I'm just slapping on photovoltaic panels and making sure I've got all sides of the vehicle somewhat covered. So hopefully when we land it on the moon, we will, whenever angle we're at, always get like some power coming in, so we're not too limited on that. But yeah, I don't know. Like, see, if we look into science, right? We've got the thermometer, which we probably want to have. Well, that's an easy part, right? We don't even need like a little utility bait for that. These things are so small, I can just slap them on here and be happy with it. And we'll even have a scientist with us, so we only really need one piece of mystery goo, one barometer, one thermometer. We can always reset it, we don't have to worry about it, which is awesome. Now all these basic small instruments are already on there, right? I've got my utility on there. I've got everything I could ever want except for my Science Junior. Where do I put this thing? I mean, I can't really put it up here because it's gonna make me explode when I get back into the atmosphere, probably, is it? At least that's my idea. It's probably a bad idea to put it there, and I don't want to put 4 of them on there because there's no use for me, basically, right? I only need one. Now this thing does kind of seem to be as big as the bottom fuel tank. Not quite. That's the issue. Not quite. It's a bit bigger. It's a tad bit bigger than I would want it to be. It's actually a lot bigger. Is it as big as a different fuel tank? Well, I mean, that doesn't work either, because in that case I've got to move all the... Oh my god. Where do I put this? Where in the world do I put this now? Do I just do something weird like this? Is that literally what I do? Because this is like the weirdest rocket in the whole universe right now. I've literally got no solution for this issue right now. I would ask you guys to let me know down below in the comments, but it's probably going to be a bit late, is it? And like, even like, I would like the structural tube, right? I just can't open it. That's the thing. I'm pretty sure there's got to be like some sort of service bay that I can properly put this in very nicely. Engine plate. What is an engine plate? Inspired by an upside down birthday cake, now with added shrouds for windy days. For clustering multiple small engines on small tanks. Oh, okay. That on small tanks? I would have thought on large tanks. I don't know. But okay, I think I get the idea of this thing somewhat. Now, what I can use to kind of fix this, I've got no clue. I mean, we could. It's so weird though. It's so weird. I can't get over it. We can of course just keep it like this, right? But it's so flippin' weird. This is the weirdest rocket ever in existence. Like, oh, this makes it look so unclear. Do you get my dilemma right here? I hope you do. We're just gonna save this as like the Lunar Magic Mark II or something, because of course that's gonna be our lander. Just gotta. Oh wait, Mark II exists. Well, it's gonna be the Mark III then. Why does the Mark II exist? Where's the Lunar Magic Mark II at? Oh, that there, yeah. Wait, did I design this last time and totally not remember? No, wait, that's mine, but like this? What's the difference between these two? I've got no clue. Whatever. We'll move on, but I don't know. I'm going to come back to this, I think, before I waste any more time. And we're going to go and... can I just retract all gears or something? Start retracted? God, no, of course not. I think I don't need a hotkey for this, right? This should be G, just to get all of them unfolded. I hope we won't have any issues with the engines blowing these up. If we will, that's going to be an issue, but I think we should be golden still. So we're going to keep that as is. We're going to go to coupling, and we will, of course, need a decoupler somewhat the size that we need it to be, which is going to be this one. Actually, probably more a stack separator, not a decoupler, so let's pick that instead. Oh, I'm actually missing a big stack separator. Very interesting, didn't know. But yeah, so there we go. That is then going to send us on to the ascent stage. Now, the ascent stage is going to have to be rather big, I think. Let me just look at stats for the moment. We're at a mass of 41 tons out of 140 that the VAB can take. So that's also a worrying figure that we probably need to look at. Let's save this thing real quick. I just want to compare this real quick to our... I think we used this one last time, didn't we? Well, seems to be the same thing. But this thing right here is at a mass 116 tons. Wow, didn't I actually think at that size that I used? I thought it was a little lighter. Well, that's a good indication at the very least that we still have a long way to go. So, in terms of fuel then, we will need a lot probably for the main ascent stage, which I think we're probably going to start using the lander stage once we do get into orbit, and the idea is going to be that these outer tanks are nearly going to be empty when we land on the moon, right, after transferring all the stuff inwards, of course. So that being the idea, I think, let me go and grab... Is that like the biggest fuel tank I have of that size? Well, that's a different size, so I guess it is. I would like something like a bit longer like that, so I don't have to place 15 of them, but apparently that's not an option, so we're gonna start like that. Gonna have to like recolor this and line the things and everything, of course, but for the time being, gonna make this thing rather big. Somewhere like this, I think. Actually, how big are my big solid fuel boosters? Whoa. Okay. I have a thrust level of 1300 kilonewtons on this thing, which is quite sufficient, I think. So the question is, do we need this thing to be any bigger? I'm not quite sure. So far we've got 3,400 meters a second. I mean, that's because I haven't put an engine on here yet. Oh. Oh, that doesn't actually fit in terms of size, which is a bit weird. I can't use this. No, wait, this. I can use that, I guess. Is it more efficient at the very least? It is a slight bit more efficient inside the atmosphere, so that's something. That will deprive me of a good bit of thrust. I'm really not quite sure how much thrust I need to lift this weight off the ground. We were at 68 tons. Adding solid fuel boosters should make us end up at about the same... I think we're going to end up at about the same weight as the other rocket, surprisingly, despite us making this thing a good bit larger. I am going to add on a few more fuel tanks, because I do think I want to go for the biggest solid fuel boosters, just to make sure that we can actually make it with the power we have. This should be sufficient in terms of size. It's going to add 2,200 meters a second. I think we're probably over the target of what we need by a good bunch at this point. So I'm really wondering. But like, I don't know. I've had a lot of experiences in this game the last few episodes, I feel like, where I totally underbuilt rockets by a whole bunch and then ended up not even being able to lift off the ground and wasting a good bunch of money. So I'm kind of trying to not repeat that again, if that makes sense. But at the same time, I also don't want to like waste a huge load of money. So kind of a bit of a dire balance to keep there, but let's get a nose cone on this. That's actually a bit of an issue. Just put it a bit further down. I mean, we do have space somewhat, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. If we can put it back on. There we go. And we are going to add some winglets right here. Probably also want some on the outside of the rocket just to make sure we've got max controllability in case I need to shut this main engine off and thus lose my swivel abilities, so I can still steer this thing, hopefully. Now, with that said, I mean, we're going to need some struts. Definitely can never forget about struts in this game, and, you know, the more you place, the better, is usually the rule of thumb, so I am going to place a huge load of them, even though it probably doesn't look too great. It does make the most sense, and that's going to kind of be a very simple ascent stage. Yeah, that's a lot of mass. How much do these things weigh? Okay. I think we probably need to rethink this thing. Or we need to look at upgrading the launch. Is it the launch pad that we would need for more mass? Let's save this for the time being in this state. God. I mean, I guess it was kind of to be expected that this thing was going to actually be rather heavy. I was kind of surprised that it wasn't thus far. But yeah, so this is kind of the limiting factor, is the launch pad. The thing is, we've nearly got 1 million in the bank. And that's only 282k to upgrade, so I'm really not too fussed about it. Let's upgrade this thing. Let's see how it's going to look at level 3, alright? Level 3 launch pad, sounds like a good plan? Sounds like a good plan to me. Let's go for it. Nice. Okay, we are fully upgraded, which is awesome. Which is great. That is going to leave us with a nice big launch pad, very nice and modern, with like some rails to get the rocket onto there. Awesome stuff. At least that's not going to be a limiting factor for us then. Price, 77k is a good bit of money, I'll have to say. I mean, these things do cost double the money. And we don't Do we need... No. Do we need 7,200 meters a second? I really don't think so. That's kind of the question, right? How much meters a second do you want to get over to the moon? Question of the day. Probably not 7,200 meters a second. I think this is probably enough to get me to Minmus, to be honest. This is probably rather going to be the Minmus magic here. Not the Lunar magic. I'm unsure. I mean, we need to keep it profitable in some way as well, right? And, I don't know what really makes it this expensive. I'm thinking it's mostly solid fuel boosters. These things cost 24k. It's like a third of the rocket cost right there. It's a lot of money. And we could half that to 12k. And probably just reduce the size of the fuel tanks a bit along the way and kind of hopefully keep it at a usable rate still. So, I don't know. Very interesting thing. I think we're going to explore that in the next episode. I'm just going to kind of also try and find out how many how many meters a second rather I need to get myself over to the moon roundabout, so I do have a bit of a figure there if we are way over the target, which I think we are. And in that case, we can probably go and save a bit of money, and then we're going to optimize the last few bits in the next episode, and probably going to start out on our way back to the moon with Jeb, and I think it was Bob, right, that was going to accompany us on this mission. Bill in here right now, but I think Bob was a scientist. We'll see about that. And, well, then we see where we can go from there. Hopefully going to make a good bunch of money, good bunch of science from that. I think we're going to have to keep this thing this way for the time being, unfortunately. I don't really have any alternative solutions in mind at the moment. If you do, please let me know down below in the comments. I would, as always, be absolutely awesome. I would very much appreciate that. But if not, we're probably going to keep this. Maybe optimize a bit in terms of meters a second and price of the rocket, and then we're gonna head on to the moon in the next episode. So thanks a lot for watching for today. This is gonna be it. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please make sure to hit that like button right down below. That does help out the channel a ton. And if you're new around here and haven't done so just yet, also please consider subscribing right down below, as well as hitting that bell icon to stay up to date on every future upcoming episode. And with that all out of the way, as always, thanks a lot for watching, and I hope I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.